Hey everyone, my name's Pat, and today I want to talk about Sekiro's combat from the lens of an Elden Ring player. But first, I think it's important to frame my experience with the From Software games. So, Elden Ring was the first From Software game that I played, and I played it for the first time in 2023. Now, I played Elden Ring on what a lot of people would consider easy mode, myself included in that. So, I played it with magic, rune farming when I was a little underleveled for an area. I also used summons whenever they were available. So not just for bosses, tough areas, I would use summons, anything like that. Um, I also would use a guide whenever I got like a little tripped up. So if I was stuck on something for more than 5 minutes, I would just like use a guide immediately. And that didn't really start until probably into the mid game, but neither here nor there. I did use a guide for a majority of Elden Ring. And I really enjoyed the game, but I couldn't get this feeling out of my head that I had missed something, like I'd missed part of the game. So I didn't pick up another FromSoft game though for the rest of 2023. Now I played some fantastic games, but after Elden Ring, none of them could really fill the Elden Ring sized hole that had been left by the game. And I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the challenge of the game, the rush of when you finally beat a tough boss you've been struggling on for a while, the scale, the world building. I don't know what it was, but something about the game I just could not shake. So Elden Ring was the first game in a long time that I would think about in my day-to-day life. Like no matter what I was doing at the time when I was playing Elden Ring, I was thinking about Elden Ring. If I would be at work thinking about Elden Ring, I would be, laying in bed at night thinking about Elden Ring. So it was a really cool feeling that I remember having a lot when I was younger playing games, and I hadn't had that in a while. So after getting that feeling from Elden Ring, I was really craving that experience again. And so I figured, well, I had such good luck with my first FromSoft experience, maybe I should go back and play the rest. So that's exactly what I decided to do. I decided to play all seven of the SoulsBorne games. That's Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and then Elden Ring again without all the um, handicaps or training wheels, whatever you want to call it. Now, I didn't know where to start though. There's six more games I need to play, and I didn't know what the best order would be to do them in. Do I start with Demon Souls and work my way up chronologically, or do I just pick and choose here and there? And I finally just decided that there isn't a right way to play these games. I just need to stop thinking about it and play them. So I landed on Sekiro based on the fact that I was most interested in Sekiro. And my interest in Sekiro comes from mostly the setting, I would say. I love Ghost of Tsushima, and anything feudal Japan will like pique my interest. So Sekiro was right up my alley in that sense. The one thing I kept hearing about Sekiro though was how difficult it was. A lot of people will rate it as one of, if not the hardest From Software game. And the difficulty drew me in because I just kept asking myself the question, like, am I good enough to beat Sekiro? I don't know. I had to use a lot of training wheels on Elden Ring. Can I beat Sekiro? And that question just kept gnawing at me to the point where I was finally just like, I have to just find out. So I made the choice to play Sekiro as the next game in my SoulsBorne journey. And I decided that I would play the game without looking up guides, except when I was stuck on something for a very long time. And I'm proud to say that I only looked up a guide maybe once or twice while I played. It really didn't happen that often. And obviously, I would play the game with no magic, no summons, because those aren't available in this game. It's really just you and your sword. And my experience was difficult, to say the least. So here are my thoughts from the lens of an Elden Ring player on Sekiro. So the main thing I want to discuss today, like I said before, is the combat. I'm not going to get into lore in this video or world building or the scale of the games or anything like that. I really just want to focus on the combat of the two games. And the combat in Sekiro is definitely more difficult than the combat in Elden Ring. But I was able to find some common ground with the two games, luckily. I think both games are similarly paced in their combat. And what I mean by that is both games want you to play fast, in my experience anyway. So Sekiro came across as way slower initially, However, the more I played, the more I got comfortable with the systems and how the parrying works and, when the openings are, the faster I was able to play. But the main difference between Sekiro and Elden Ring is that there's no help for the player in Sekiro. Like I mentioned before, I was able to play Elden Ring on easy mode, so with the help of summons, magic, stuff like that. Those aren't available in Sekiro. There's not a lot of build variety in Sekiro, and I know that you have the different prosthetics you can use and all that, but none of those will really carry you through the game. What's going to carry you through the game is learning the mechanics. That is really the only way to get through Sekiro. And the main difference, it comes down to that. The fact that, you're going to have to get comfortable in close range melee combat. And the main difference between the combat of the two games comes down to this analogy in my mind. So imagine you have two homework assignments. The first assignment is a math problem, and the whole assignment is just one singular math problem. Now, it would be impossible for you to do the end of the equation and then work your way backwards, or start in the middle and then work forwards and then go backwards. You would almost certainly have to progress through it chronologically. I think that's the word you would use for a math problem. And then imagine you have a homework assignment that's an essay. So with the essay, there's no set order that you have to progress through the essay. And what I mean by that is you could start with the opening paragraph and then go through the body and then write your conclusion. Or you could start with the conclusion, then do the body, or do the body and then make your conclusion and your opening match that. There's really no set way that you have to do it. So in these two analogies, Sekiro represents the math problem where Elden Ring represents the essay. And I don't mean to say that in Elden Ring you can start at the end of the game and then work your way towards the beginning. That's not what I mean. What I mean is there's just more freedom for the player to go somewhere else if they're not comfortable with a certain situation they're in. Sekiro, though, essentially says like, hey, no, we're going to sit here until you've got this part down. And by doing that, it comes across as very difficult, and it is. But what it does is it forces you to learn the mechanics the game wants you to learn. So while the difficulty curve in Sekiro is definitely steeper, once you have the building blocks down, you're constantly building that essay out, if you will. Now, Sekiro, like as I said, the difficulty curve is much steeper, and one way I kind of conceptualize this is to think about the bosses in Elden Ring that took me a long time to complete. And when I think about it, I can't really remember a boss that took me more than 20 or 30 minutes in Elden Ring, aside from some of the late game bosses. But those bosses are all the way in the late game. None of the early game bosses gave me much trouble. I was able to beat Margit and Godric, as well as Renala and all of them, like pretty quickly. But in Sekiro, that was not my experience. I hit my first main roadblock much, much earlier in Sekiro, and that was with Genichiro. So my first major roadblock in Sekiro was Genichiro. It took me well over 4 hours to finally beat him. And I came into the fight with Genichiro with just this overwhelming sense of trepidation. I was terrified to press him, so I was hanging back and getting hit by the bow a lot. And I just could not get the timing of his attacks down. I couldn't read, the stab that he does compared to the slash. It was just all messed up for me. And I repeated the fight over and over and over. And as I was repeating the fight, I didn't really notice myself improving very much. However, I went back and I reviewed the fights to make this video. And when I was reviewing the fights, I noticed little things that I was picking up on almost every attempt. So I was able to see, that stab that comes out this time compared to the slash. Or I was realizing that if you just stay close to him, he doesn't really use his bow as much, and it makes the fight a lot easier. So the more I learned and, the better I got at the fight, the more confident I became. And no longer was I hanging back. I was up in his face, pressing the fight, really becoming the boss, essentially. And in doing that, I got more and more and more comfortable. And then I finally beat him. Or so I thought. Little did I know, there was a second phase to this boss. And after the cutscene and seeing him come back with a lightning attack, I again felt my confidence just evaporate. And the reason for this is because I didn't think I could handle the lightning attack now. I was like, oh great, something new I have to learn. And I didn't think I had the tools I needed to be able to deal with this lightning attack. However, after, continuing to repeat the fight, I soon realized that, oh, even this lightning attack has a counter in the form of the lightning reversal. So after that, I came back and I fought Genichiro and I was able to beat him, and I sent him from the top of Isshin Castle, and I learned a lot in this fight with Genichiro. It really taught me that no matter how insane the boss looks, or no matter how crazy his attacks can be, how fast they seem, all of these bosses can be beaten, and it may take some time, but slowly but surely I am learning how to fight these bosses and how best to approach each scenario. And it really taught me that aggression is key. I think that's something that is very big to Sekiro, is that the more you press your advantage, the better it's going to be, because it's forcing you into these tight windows where you have to, you have to get your parry timing down. You have to press your advantage when you've got it. So Genichiro taught me a ton in Sekiro. Now, after my fight with Genichiro, other bosses in Sekiro certainly gave me some issues, but I really want to focus on Isshin the Sword Saint. Isshin the Sword Saint is the last boss you fight in the game for most of the endings. I know there's some other ones where he's not the case, but for the ending I got, Isshin was the final boss. He's also regarded as one of the toughest bosses that the developer From Software has ever created. And the reason for this is because Sekiro is already hard as it is with the mechanics, and he really is the culmination of everything you've learned in the game. So he's essentially the final roadblock of the game that says, like, hey, we're going to sit here in this gorgeous field until you figure it out. Until you learn how to beat me, we're going to be here all day. Now, Isshin is insane. He's super quick. He knows how to punish the player, and his attacks are just devastating. I mean, he can evaporate your health bar in no time at all. So when you arrive at the field, Genichiro is the only one there. Isshin has not shown up yet. It's just Genichiro. And after fighting Genichiro so many times on my first attempt, I was amazed at just how quickly I just dispatched him. Like, he was just a common enemy. Easy. Got rid of him very quickly. And then Isshin stepped up. Or I guess out of him. And wow, it was more than I had bargained for. So within my first few fights with Isshin, I was actually able to get him to phase 2, but however, phase 2 was more than I was ready to handle at the time. He was carrying just his arsenal of weapons, I think, was what made it so difficult. So he's carrying a sword, he pulled a spear out of the ground in phase 2, and he also is carrying a gun now. And as I said, that was just way too much for me to handle on my first couple attempts. So the issue with Isshin is that he demands excellent parry timing, because his attacks are so strong that simply blocking him will fill up your posture meter in an instant. So you have to be really good at parrying his attacks. And when you combine his attack power with his long combos, that is another way that your posture bar can just be destroyed very, very quickly. So the parry timing with Isshin is, I would say, the most important thing. But now I want to focus on kind of his arsenal of weapons. So as I said, Isshin has only a sword in his first phase, and a spear, the sword again, and the gun in his second phase, and then he gets the lightning attack in his final phase. Now, the sword is really good at close quarters. His strikes are a mix of really slow windups and super fast windups, so it throws the player off balance. And as I said many times before, one wrong parry timing and your posture bar is probably over 50%. I'd say probably 65% there. And then the spear adds a completely new dimension to the fight in phases 2 and 3. So the spear increases his range considerably. And the timing on the spear is also very odd, because he has these long swings, and the combos he can throw out are just insanely long. So again, your parry timing has to be perfect with these. And with that huge 8-hit combo that he has, I could not parry it my first few times. I was blocking most of it, but even then, when I was blocking, the 8-hit combo, I think it is, by the time he got to hit 5 or 6, my posture bar was gone. And then those last 3 strikes would just hit me and immediately kill me. So when you add the sword onto the spear, that gives Isshin superior attack power in the close to mid-range, I like to call it. But he doesn't have any long-range capabilities, so I thought. That's where the gun comes into play. If I didn't get hit by the sword, if I did get hit by the sword or the spear, my initial reaction was to back up, to give myself some space and time to heal. But Isshin punishes that. He is coded extremely well to know when the player is backing up, and he pulls out the gun. And so what that does is it plays against the instinct that I had learned my whole time playing of like, oh, just back up. I'm getting hit. I need to heal. Okay, well, I'll just back up. Well, Isshin takes that and throws it out the window because the gun completely changes that, because it gives him, superior firepower over close, mid, and long range. And I think that is just really the crux of what Isshin does. Is he is the test of all the things you've learned, but he also puts a twist on some of those things, as far as, most players will just back up if they're getting hit, but Isshin really punishes that. And other bosses in Sekiro do have ranged capabilities in their kits. Genichiro has his bow, Lady Butterfly has the daggers, Al has his shurikens. There's a few more, I'm sure, that I've forgotten. But when it comes to Isshin's gun, I found it really hard to tell when he was going to use it. I don't know if it's because he kind of tucks it under his arm when he shoots it sometimes, but I just found it very difficult to deal with in my first few attempts. And his last phase, as I previously stated, introduces the introduces the form of his lightning attacks. Now, when I noticed Isshin using the lightning attack in phase 3, the initial fear that I had felt when fighting Genichiro wasn't there. It was a different feeling. It was relief. I was able to sit there and think, oh, I can handle this. This is good. This is his last phase, his last big, surprise is something I've already learned. Like, okay, this is fine. And so what I noticed when fighting him is that I had all the skills I needed. It was just a matter of when, not if, I could beat Isshin at this point. So what Isshin is he's a comprehensive test of everything the player has learned in Elden Ring, in Sekiro. But what he does is turn it up. He turns up all those things, tighter windows, heavier attacks, and all those things really show the player how far they have come in the game. Now, slowly but surely, I was able to perfect Genichiro's first and second phase. So the attacks that I couldn't read on my first few attempts were no problem now. And then I got to the final phase with the lightning attack, and something just clicked. The 8-hit combo that had been giving me absolute fits prior to this was no problem now. I actually, in my last attempt, I was able to perfect parry almost every strike. I got to the point where it just wasn't a problem. On my last attempt, I perfect parried the last strike into a Makiri counter that ended up winning me the fight. And at that, I'd finally beat Isshin the Sword Saint. And when the player defeats Isshin doesn't just die immediately. What he does is he bows his head and he says, go ahead and do it, give me the final blow. And when you finally land the last attack on him, all he says is well done. And the reason Isshin says this is because Sekiro, or the player, has proven themselves as a warrior at this point. It's a sign of respect, not just from Isshin to Sekiro, but it also feels like the developers to the player. It feels like the developers are saying, well done for mastering the combat. Well done for completing Sekiro. Well done for not giving up, as I'm sure a lot of people have done. With enough time and dedication, you can get through these games. So I think that was a really nice ending for it, to show like, hey, thank you, good job. So what began as a real white knuckle experience in Sekiro with the combat, I was just parry spamming and hoping I hit it correctly turned into what felt like a tightly choreographed dance. And I'd heard that a lot going into Sekiro, that eventually it would feel more like a dance. But I don't know, I just kind of thought it was cheesy and didn't really believe it. But the more I played, the more I really felt like, oh, this is just kind of like a dance. It's nice. So to kind of wrap up my thoughts on the combat of Sekiro and Elden Ring, they are different, but like I said, I was able to find some common ground with the pacing and the fact that the game wants you to play fast. However, I found the combat in Sekiro more rewarding in a sense, because it always felt like I was learning something new and progressing my playstyle and not necessarily my playstyle, I guess just perfecting my mechanics of the game would be a better way to put it. So overall, while the experience was extremely difficult in Sekiro, the longer I played, I felt like I was improving constantly and getting better. Whereas in Elden Ring, I didn't always feel that way. I felt more that, okay, my build is getting stronger or my weapon is better now. Whereas, as I said, in Sekiro, it felt like I, the player, was improving. And I really appreciated that. And that only comes from the heightened difficulty and the fact that, you know, you have to repeat this one section before you move on throughout the entire game. So just in closing, I would say that I found the combat in Sekiro to be a lot more rewarding than Elden Ring. And that is down to the fact that I felt like I was improving as a player, not just my gear was getting better, which I really appreciated. All right, well, I just wanted to say thank you all so much for watching. I do appreciate it. After playing Sekiro, I've just found like a new love for these FromSoft games, and I can't wait to experience more of them. Right now, I'm currently playing through Dark Souls 3 on Twitch, and that is twitch.tv/PattyRick Plays, PATYRICK Plays. And yeah, if you want to keep up with where I am in, you know, the game or what game I'm currently playing, Twitch is probably going to be the best place to check that out. However, I do always tweet and post to Instagram when I'm going live, and those links are going to be in the description down below. So please feel free to follow me there. And if you did enjoy the video, I would appreciate if you would like and share the video. Don't forget to subscribe to keep up with all these videos moving forward, because I will be making further videos comparing these games, probably mostly to Elden Ring, as I feel like I know it the best. So I'll probably be comparing, you know, Dark Souls 3 to Elden Ring, Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, I guess, to Elden Ring. And I'm not sure if it's just going to be combat or if I'm going to kind of expand it, but it will probably be combat, just because I don't feel super comfortable with the lore. A lot of it will go over my head and I won't understand it and have to watch a super long video after, which I do enjoy doing. The lore is super enticing for these games. It just, a lot of times when I'm playing them, I'm just like, hey, let's fight the boss, let's fight the boss, let's fight the boss. So I would say most of the future videos will also focus on the combat between the games. But as I said, if you want to keep up with where I am on my playthroughs of the different games, the best place is going to be on Twitch, and I stream on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons from about 4 to 6 Eastern, and then on Saturdays around 1 Eastern to generally 4 or 5, but sometimes it goes longer. And so yeah, I'm really excited to keep playing Dark Souls 3 and see where that goes. I was playing Elden Ring, but I'm gonna wait till Shadow of the Erdtree comes out to finish that playthrough. And so yeah, like I said, if you did enjoy the video, please like and subscribe. Tell a friend about the video. That would be very much appreciated. And yeah, I will talk to y'all when I talk to y'all. Thank y'all so much.